At this point, it is clear that Cyril Ramaphosa is testing Donald Trump, because the announcement that he made today by saying that I hereby announce the appointment of Mr. Mcebisi Jonas as my special envoy to the United States of America, serving as the official representative of the President and the government of the Republic of South Africa. In this capacity, Mr. Jonas is entrusted with the responsibility to advance South Africa's diplomatic, trade and bilateral priorities. He will lead negotiations, foster strategic partnerships, and engage with the US government officials and private sector leaders to promote our nation's interest. If you skip one paragraph, he says that as a former Deputy Finance Minister of South Africa, Mr. Jonas brings extensive governmental experience to his new diplomatic role. Concurrently, he holds the position of independent, non-executive chairman of the MTN Group, a role he will maintain alongside his responsibilities as my special envoy. Well, if you read this message, you would be very glad, because this is a man of integrity. At one point, he claimed that he refused 600 million from the Guptas, the corruption money. I mean, if you have someone like this, you have to be very happy that you have him on your corner. But there are more uncovered problems from Mr. Mcebisi Jonas. Just listen to this video.
Right now, the US is undergoing a watershed moment, with Biden the certain winner in the presidential race against the racist, homophobe Donald Trump. How we got to a situation where a narcissistic right-winger took charge of the world's greatest economic and military powerhouse is something that we need to ponder over. It is something that all democracies need to ponder over.
Rightly so. If we go back just about 2 years ago, there was a point when Mcebisi Jonas was speaking on the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, and he was speaking about Donald Trump, and he's speaking about the fact that this guy is a racist. And now the president decides that this is the special man that I'm going to put there as my special envoy to the United States of America. And then one really needs to wonder, what happened when the president decided that he's going to appoint Mcebisi Jonas? Was the advisors wrong, or was it himself who decided, I'm going to go against anybody? Because if you are going to put someone that has said some things about Donald Trump, which, to be honest, there is no false in that. He was just speaking from the heart, and everything that he spoke about is true. So now, if you are going to put him in the White House, in the Oval Office, to try and bring USA and South Africa together, do you think that is going to work? Considering the fact that Donald Trump is very brutal to his haters, do you think that if you want South Africa and USA to work together again by sending someone without vetting them, sending Mcebisi Jonas, a man of integrity, who in their right mind refuses 600 million, if you do that, you are a man of integrity. That is why Ramaphosa decided that this is the man to bring South Africa and the US together. And by doing that, he's looking at some other reasons, overlooking the past. Donald Trump is going to be very brutal to Mcebisi Jonas. What you saw with Zelensky was just the tip of the iceberg. If they really send this guy to the US, I'm afraid Donald Trump might really treat him very bad. And he might want to prove a point and still say that they are sending a hater, they are sending a black man, a supporter of the genocide against white farmers in South Africa. He can really say those words, and nobody is going to say that you are wrong, because he has the power. If you speak, they are going to pull this interview to say, remember this day, this guy never liked Donald Trump. So for the president to really overlook such problems and still send him, it is very questionable. You know, I was listening to Herman Mashaba of the Action SA, and they were asking him on SAFM about this fact of Ramaphosa sending Mcebisi Jonas, and he really complained about the fact that it seems like it's very early for Ramaphosa to be appointing a special envoy, considering the fact that China is dealing with the US. Now, what Ramaphosa needed to do was to sit back and enjoy the show. Maybe, just maybe, some other time he can decide on that. Now, Donald Trump is going to shift focus and really deal with Ramaphosa and this special envoy. He's going as a special envoy. He's going to come back as a regret envoy because the US is very brutal when it comes to those who do not bow down to the President Donald Trump.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen and friends, the World Trade Organization is integral to the multilateral system and to advancing economic progress. Over the past 30 years, the WTO has worked to ensure a level playing field in global trade that is free, predictable, and governed by a rules-based system. Currently, more than 80% of global trade takes place under the WTO rules-based system. However, imbalances persist. The inclusivity promised by the multilateral system and by the Doha Development Round has not materialized for many. Developing countries that account for most of the WTO's membership remain locked into the lower end of global value chains. Commodity dependence further exposes these economies to price volatility and to macroeconomic disruption. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we witnessed the inability of the system to deliver a credible outcome. Across the globe, the constraints and potential overreach of the rules are limiting access to key policy tools that are required to promote sustainable development. South Africa reaffirms its support for the reform initiative that is being spearheaded by the Director General of the WTO. We must redouble our efforts to ensure that trade supports development. WTO rules must facilitate structural transformation that integrates developing countries into the global trade. Governments must be afforded the requisite policy space to enable them to be more responsive to their domestic challenges, and trade rules must be recalibrated to provide policy space for developing countries to industrialize. Friends, the 30th anniversary of the establishment of the WTO takes place in challenging and uncertain times. We are seeing unilateral and protectionist measures being implemented by some advanced economies that are outside the agreed upon multilateral framework.